From Syracuse University right now. First of all, phenomenal game Friday night, but we're not going to talk about that.
I know. Awesome game. Go Cuse.
But that's not the subject this morning. I want to talk about Steve Bannon, who declared a season of war against the Republican establishment. Does this feel like a season of war to you?
Not really. Actually, to be honest with you, yesterday was an absolutely spectacular day in upstate New York. I took a motorcycle ride, rode through the countryside, and it's interesting. I saw a number of still standing homemade President Trump signs, support our president, Trump for president, and things haven't really changed in the rural, bucolic countryside of upstate New York, where people still may not love the president's personality, but they support the agenda. We've lost a lot of jobs. This is the Rust Belt of New York. And we're looking for many of the things on the agenda that he wants passed. So I understand the angst coming from the side of Steve Bannon, but I'm an unconventional Republican. I have still yet to be endorsed by my local party. I've served office 3 years in the state assembly, and now I'm in Congress. And so I'm not really the establishment Republican either, but I'm also a common sense, and I think I have a lot of support on both sides. But it's going to be interesting. I wish Steve Bannon would focus on some of the seats that we could switch back over to Republican. But I do think that everyone's going to be running pretty much on their own next year. I don't know if the president's going to be a pro or con in many ways. Obviously, in my district, he won by 16 points, so he's still fairly popular here. But I don't think it's popular in that they like his personality as much as they want the agenda to change. They want to focus on, as we're talking about, middle-income tax cuts, reestablishing businesses in our community. The trade issue is really big in this community. We have a lot of old companies that have left or gone out of business, and we'd like to see the restoration of our economy.
Why do you think
those are the big issues here?
A lot of what you said is fascinating, including you think you'll all be on your own next year. But why do you think establishment has become a four-letter word? And I mention that because there is someone who's challenging you in the primary. I don't know if he's a serious candidate or not, frankly, but he goes out of his way to call you an establishment status quo politician.
Yeah, he just needs to do his homework. He's not really. He sounds like a young guy. I love to have competition. I look forward to having him. I hope he gets into the primary. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. But look, the people need a choice, and that's what I've always stood for, is giving them a choice, whether it's a primary or general. I've never actually run in a race without having a primary, and I've never been endorsed by the Republicans in a primary. So here I am as a member of Congress, believe it or not, and in that situation. I do think establishment looks bad, though, because you see nothing's changing. And I think especially in my region, New York, we just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting things to change, and it doesn't. And so people are tired of the same old story. I think that's what they're looking for, something new.
Let me ask you about New York specifically, because in the president's tax cut proposal right now, endorsed by congressional leadership right now, it would do away with tax deductions for state taxes, local taxes, and property taxes. And you know, these are huge deductions for the residents of your district in New York State here. So could you vote for any kind of a plan that includes the elimination of these deductions?
You know, the problem with the so-called SALT deduction, as you're calling it, the state and local tax deduction, is that it typically was seen as something that would help large earners or high-income earners, but in New York, because our taxes, our property taxes are so high, and really the most onerous tax that we have, it becomes really important. We're doubling the standard deduction, which will bring the adjusted gross incomes higher and help more of the middle-income taxpayers. But because our taxes are so obsequiously high in upstate, especially my region, which has some of the highest taxes in the nation, it's a problem for me. We need to see some kind of adjustment coming out of the Ways and Means Committee. We've had numerous meetings with Congressman Kevin Brady, our chair, about fixing that, and there are a number of us on the New York side as a delegation who aren't going to support that tax plan unless we see some kind of adjustment in the SALT. And we would like to retain it. Obviously, that's the perfect world, but something to protect those middle-income payers who are paying so much in property tax. And New York, by the way, another thing that's really interesting is New York actually pays out more in federal taxes than it receives in federal benefits. So the argument that, well, you know, you're subsidizing higher tax states doesn't really fall in the case of New York State. So we are paying the load. Yes, we need a change.
All right, let me ask you about health care quickly, because on the Senate side, Lamar Alexander, Patty Murray back to the table here to figure out a way to restore the subsidies to insurance companies to help lower-income Americans pay for insurance that the president just stopped paying. Could you support some kind of a plan, or what could you support that gets those subsidies back for the lower income Americans? What would you need to vote yes on that?
Right, and when you're sort of saying the lower income Americans, its subsidies actually go to the insurance company.
I know,
the
but to pay,
bugaboo, the bad people.
but to help pay for the
Right.
insurance for low income Americans, they're not separated.
Right.
It's for that purpose.
Right. Earlier this year, I wrote a letter indicating my support for the subsidies. I'm not a subsidy person, but until we have reform, until we've repealed and replaced Obamacare, we have a number of people who are going to be left falling through the cracks who need the subsidy in order to maintain insurance. So for me, I'd like to see what they're going to work out and see if we can come up with a solution that's temporary, because in the end, we're going to need to repeal and replace Obamacare in order to fix our market here. So if we haven't done that yet, though, I hate to see people losing their insurance. As it is, it's disastrous enough that we already have more people in my community paying a penalty instead of getting health care insurance so they can see their doctor. That's the worst case scenario, and we're trying to fix that.
Claudia
So
Tenney, member of Congress from New York. Great to have you with us. This is very nice to see you.
Thanks so much. Great to see you, John.
Congratulations on Friday night.